Welcome to At Home is Now. My name is Wanaka Oberhuber, and I'm your host. My guest today is Adam Miller. Welcome.
Thank you, sir. Thanks for having me.
I'm so happy to have you as well. So let's start out. What are you most passionate about in life right now, and how does it contribute to your joy and happiness?
Well, I'm passionate because for the last 46 years, I've been a messenger from Holiness, and I've also been a spiritual healer. I'm also a psychologist. So I'm definitely passionate about that.
Yeah, to stay with it so long, you need to be passionate about it somehow, right?
Yeah, yeah, it's been a full-time job now for many decades.
Yeah, maybe you'd like to share how you got to this. Um,
Sure. Yeah, I feel like I want to go like telling the story is probably the most important part of what's going on at this point. So I'm going to start with I was born in 1959, and I started figure skating when I was a couple of years old in 1962, and I went up through the whole figure skating ranks for many, many years until I was 18. I was in amateur competition. I did a 4.5 minute program with seven triples. I was one of the first people in the United States to actually do a backflip in the program. And I also did double axle. And at that time, that was a big jump, 2.5 turns. So went through all of that. And then my life took a completely different course. So in 1977, I was 18. I'd been skating for all those years. And the thing about figure skating that everybody needs to hear is that we have this policy of no pain, no gain, ignore your body, do whatever it takes, pretty much whip yourself all the time. In order to get these crazy, jumps and accomplish whatever it is craziness that you think you need to do. And so, because I ignored that for so many years, I wasn't paying any attention to um, my life or what my body needed. I didn't even have enough water, for God's sake, much less any kind of nourishment or any other thing. I was doing about 12 hours a day, 7 days a week. So, a very difficult schedule. And one day, I went to do a jump, and I was in the middle of the jump going about 40 miles an hour, and I was about 6 feet in the air. And I went unconscious during the jump. So as I started to turn like this, one, two, on that third one, I hit the ice and broke my nose across here, dislocated my shoulder, broke my right ankle, etc. And the old saying, woke up dead? Well, I pretty much had that happen. So I woke up in the hospital, and there were people working on me there, and they informed me that I had double pneumonia with pus and blood filled up to about here, and about 104 temperature at that point. So they threw me in a vat of ice. And back in the 70s, because this happened in 1977 when I was 18, the medical profession's changed a lot since then. So they took me out of this ice, and the temperature regulated at least for a while. Well, the problem with that was the body kind of went into a panic mode, and the temperature went up to 109 degrees. So at that point, my heart stopped and I actually died. So, just so everybody understands, before I tell this story, I'm not trying to convince anybody of anything. It's just my experience. I'm a very straight person. I'm a very even mainstream sort of person. I'm not out there really in any other way than what I'm going to talk about here. So I have a completely normal life. I have 3 children. I have a 8-year-old girl, a 10-year-old boy, and a 15-year-old boy. So I've been married 16 years to my wife, Eve. By the way, our names are Adam and Eve. I just thought I'd tell everybody that. So, back to the story. At that point, my temperature was just so high that the heart stopped entirely. And I went out there. Universe, God, whatever you want to call it. And actually, there was a guy waiting for me, right? So there's this guy standing there. He's about 6 feet tall, blonde hair, and he had this luminescence from the inside out. It's kind of hard to explain. And I was just there. There was no light, no tunnel, none of that. I was just there. So obviously, I asked this gentleman, "Where am I? And who are you?" And he said, "Well, we're going to get into those details later, but I would like to take you to a place where there are individuals there that can explain what's going on." So right at that moment, see, when you're in a holy space, it's not like you're walking there or you're flying there or any other thing. You're just there. So we were just in front of this building right when he said it. The building was probably 300 or 400 feet high, many football fields wide. It was a huge place. There were these stairs in front of this building, and I looked at this man, and he said, "Well, I want you to walk up the stairs and pay attention to what happens." So, as I started to walk up these stairs, every time I put my foot down on one, they lit up in millions and millions of tiny little stars. It really was absolutely spectacular. I got to the top of the landing, and standing on the landing was really interesting. It was made of a plasma material. It was very warm. So I asked the man, I said, "What's going on with the stairs?" And he said, "Well, the stairs are kind of like a mirror, and they're acting as such, and they're reflecting the essence and the material that you were actually made out of." And so that actually kind of made some sense to me at that point. He says, "What I'd like you to do is go in the building, and there'll be individuals there who will explain what's going on," just like he had said before. So I walked into this building, and once I got inside, well, I got the next shock, right? So the next shock was the entire building was full of angels, just like everybody hears about. I just want everybody to know that they are real, and that angelic hosts are among us 24/7. So there was the small angels about that size. You could call them pixies or whatever. And then there was the seraphim angels that are about 6 feet tall. And they were very beautiful. But was really, really interesting because this building's probably 400 or 500 feet tall. There were the archangels that were guarding the 4 corners of this building. They were at least 200 feet tall probably, and they did have armor on, and they had a spear, and they had a shield, so, and even a helmet on them. They also had colored wings, so each and every angel had its own color of wings. I learned later that the color of the wings on any angelic host, doesn't matter what kind, is actually their education. And the color signifies what they know and what their services are. So at the end of this building, there was a podium there, and there was a woman that was on my left closest to me, and she motioned me over. Now, at this podium, there was this woman I'm going to describe, and then there was a guy named Saint Germain, and there was the great Buddha, and a lot of people know who that is. And then there was some type of angelic host and some other holy individuals there. When I got close to her, she explained to me that she used to be the Mother Mary. So that was very, very settling for me. Although I'm not a Christian, um, it was definitely comforting. And so she also had this wonderful halo around her head, and it was every color of the rainbow. It was totally amazing. Um, she explained to me that the building that I was in was called the place of change. We're all humans when they're either entering or exiting a body. They come there. And she explained that herself and the other individuals are called the Holy Council. So you go into this place of change, you talk to the Holy Council about what you're going to do next and about what's going on in your life. This is a basic synopsis here. So what she was talking about with me was some choices that I could make. One was that I could go to a place called the Universal College, where you can learn about mathematics and theory and holy things, etc. And I could go for a period of 2 weeks. The next choice was I could stay and talk to them for whatever period of time I needed to, and then go back to the earth. And the third choice was that I could actually leave my body at that point and stay in the holy place and then make some choices about where to go. So I thought about this for a long time. And because I was 18, I didn't want to put my family through the trauma of, their child dying right now. So I chose to go to the Universal College. I went there for a period of 2 weeks, and the instructors were really interesting. They did look like angelic hosts, but they weren't. They did have actual wings, but they were a type of instructor. So I took the courses there. I graduated from that college. And then I came back to the place of change once that happened. And Mother Mary said, well, the next thing we're going to do is we're going to show you this book. And so she handed it to me. And on the front of the book, it said Adam Miller's life experience, basically. And so when I opened it up, it started with I was going to go to the earth and who my parents would be, what country I would be in, brothers, my brother, my girlfriends, my skating career. You get the point. The problem is that the book was only 18 years long, and at that point, I then, of course, realized, oh my gosh, I'm dead. I really wasn't, but that was my reaction to that. So Holy Mother Mary explained to me, she said, no, you're not dead. You're kind of in a space of suspended animation a little bit while you're making your decisions. Now, she said, if you want to go back to the earth, you're going to need to write the rest of your life in this book and turn it back into what's called the Holy Library. So I took a very long time. I thought about all of this very carefully, and I did write the rest of my life in the life's experience book. So I handed this back to her, and she said, it's time now to go back to the earth. So right when she said that last wording, I found myself back in the hospital, right? So it turns out that I was only dead 4.5 minutes, even though I had all that experience happen, including the Universal College in a period of 2 weeks. So that is basically the long and the short of my death experience and the beginning of my journey into being what I am today. So after that, I had so much lung damage. And by the way, I did walk out of the hospital in a period of 2 weeks, which is, of course, an impossibility from that much death energy. So I realized I couldn't skate any longer in a major competition. So I chose to go in the Holiday on Ice, which is a big skating show, international, and I went to Europe. And arriving there, I thought a lot about my death experience. And the problem with me is and I'm a very logical thinker. I still am today. I'm still, even at 67 years old, I'm still like that. And just wasn't sure, was that real or was it illusionary or what? So some time went by, and I thought about this for a long time, but not much happened for about a year. Uh, However, then another incident where the universe came to call happened. This is about 2 o'clock in the morning. And if you remember about the man that I told everybody about in the beginning of the death story who was waiting for me there, well, he was standing at the foot of my bed at 2 o'clock in the morning. And he said, hello. And we talked back and forth about that death experience a little bit. And he said, I want to explain some things to you. What has actually happened is you will, of course, now have a mission into holiness. And what will happen is you're going to actually see me physically, plus you're going to see Buddha and Kuan Yin and some others for the rest of your life. And you will actually see us visually. And the reason you'll be able to see us is because the veil that's between yourself and where we exist is no longer there. That was part of your education. So after that, obviously I was a little bit shocked, and I kind of let that be for a little while. So some time went by, and I had a girlfriend in the skating show maybe 6 months later, and she had broken her ankle. And so just by instinct, I just immediately, because, I cared for her, I just grabbed her ankle. And she said, wow, that's kind of warm, and so on and so forth. And long story short, she ended up being able to skate on the same ankle within about 3 days. So, I should have taken months to get over that. And I started to realize that there's a lot to this, that the whole death experience, in my situation at least, was truly extraordinary. And there were about to be many, many other things after that that were also of a supernatural slash extraordinary nature. So I stayed in that skating show for about 13 years. During the time that I was there, other people in the skating show started to hear that there were things happening of a supernatural nature that had to do with me. And so they started coming to my dorm room with bumps and bruises and breaks and cuts and venereal disease and alcoholism and drug addiction and whatever, depression, name it. So that's really where I started working the job that I have today. And after I got out of the skating show, I decided I was going to teach skating. So I did. I moved to Southern California. And in Southern California, I was teaching there. But I didn't feel, complete. It's like there was something missing still in the puzzle of what was going on. And I was in a little town called Upland, California. That's at the bottom of Mount Baldy, just to kind of give everybody a reference where I was. And at the top of Mount Baldy was a Buddhist monastery there. So I went for a visit. And you know how it is when you go for a visit, sometimes you end up doing something else. So when I knocked on the door up there, there was a little Chinese a monk person. And when he opened the door, he said, yeah, we've been waiting for you. Long story short, I gave up my skating career for 1 year. And I spent one entire year as a Buddhist monk at the top of Mount Bali. I didn't do any skating. I didn't come down off the mountain at all. So after that, then I felt a lot more grounded, and I felt a lot more normal, whatever normal is. And I decided to start working on people in America. So I took another job skating after that in Northern California. And I'm very attracted to the Lake Tahoe area. And so I was working there. I also graduated from school in Reno, Nevada. So I already kind of knew that area. So I was working there, and but I kind of felt the call to um, go to another show because I wasn't quite done show skating. I was still a young person, and so I decided to go to Japan, which is where, man, the universe doesn't go away, which is what I want to say to everybody. It's always present, and it's always waiting to show you its face in some way. So I went to Osaka, and I was in a show there for 2 years, and something else happened. So one day I was out touring the island there, and I went to a Buddhist monastery, and I ended up going back in a really far place where they don't really admit anybody that's not a monk. Doesn't matter what your race is, they just don't admit people there. I kind of got lost there. I didn't do it on purpose. And way back in the back part of the deepest part of this monastery, I saw a monk there. And at first, I just didn't even notice that there was really anything strange, different about it until I got close enough to him. And what I realized is when I was looking at him, he was actually floating off the floor with his legs crossed about 4 feet. Yeah, this guy was actually floating off the floor. It was unbelievable, obviously very shocking and intense for a young person. And I just kind of stood there spellbound. And of course, he realized I was there. And he did a really strange thing. So his legs are like this, and he actually put one leg down at a time, which is mathematically impossible. So it's floating for that matter. And he looked at me and he said, "You're not supposed to be in here." But then he paused and said, "Oh, it's you." And I'm like, "Okay." And he says, "Are you on your mission? Are you doing your mission? How's that going?" And so on. And then he kind of became enraged after that because he realized that I wasn't supposed to be there. He actually grabbed me by the ear and we'll call it escorted me out to the front. All right. So, after that incident, I started realizing that whatever's going on with me, from the death experience initially on, that all of that was obviously meant to be, obviously is very important. And, I needed to listen to what today I call holiness, holy beings, and so on and so forth. So after that show, then I took a full-time position. I opened an office. Long story short, I worked for about 30 years on 16 people a day. And the way that works is those are called healing sessions by everybody, since we got to give it a label. And I worked on everything from stage 4 cancer to car accidents, undiagnosed diseases, incurable diseases. And I took the hardest cases that nobody would touch. So it's been a long, long journey between 1977 and today. Today I have a different type of mission. For all those years, I stayed very, very hidden. I didn't write books. I didn't go on television. I didn't advertise myself at all. And the people that came to see me were absolutely just by word of mouth by somebody else. And we screened everybody, very carefully. However, my wife of 16 years has now talked me into doing these interviews about not just the story, but about holiness and so on. And we're also we do retreats and we do events. Right now, I'm in Mount Shasta, California. And we've been here for the last few days. I'm just talking to people and, you know, getting to know the landscape of how people are here. This is a very holy place. Um, One of the things I will mention is that the holy ones, the holy beings that I've been mentioning through this whole story, they're actually in a session, right? So there's about 300 of them. By the way, they come to Mount Shasta. It is one of the places in the world where the holy beings gather when they have an important item that they feel they need to converse about and help humanity work out. So they're actually in session right now as I'm sitting here on the top of Mount Shasta, which is like 14,600 feet. And in that dimensional space, that's the only place you can actually see them. So lots and lots of people over the years in Mount Shasta from the 1800s up have had many, many experiences in Mount Shasta. There are documented cases where people completely disappeared. So there's definitely these areas on the mountain that are super holy and are an experiential sort of place where people can come and actually see, hear, and feel, a holy vibration for themselves. So we're actually here doing some videos on the mountain about why holiness, is in session, right? So my whole mission at this point really is to be able to give holy messages, because we have a troubled world right now. We have the Ukraine going on. We have, Iran going on, and various other divisions, not just in the United States, but worldwide, politically and so on, which I absolutely stay out of all that. But the point I think I'm making here as to why I'm talking to Wanako, and I've done lots and lots of podcasts now throughout the world, is because it's time that all of us as humans, we've got to narrow that divide and realize that we're all part of the same universe, the same God. Although, our semantics are different, our churches are different, our organizations are different. We're all the same humans, and the DNA is basically the same. And so I think it's time that we come together better and to be able to understand our true origins of the holy selves, that we really are. And, Wanako, that's my story and my experience, and I'm sticking to it. So that's that's pretty much what's going on with me at this point.
So, how is this going to go about, this joining of human beings and learning to undo all these prejudices and all this bullshit that's keeping us from connecting, right?
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah. So, really the only answer to that is you cannot come together by trying to do this thing from the outside in, right? You can never fill an unfillable hole by being materialistic or racist or whatever, or you're thinking you're better than others and so on. That's all that outward, what I call unconscious sort of thinking. And really, what it takes is for people to just stop. The problem with humans is that they're so busy doing, they forgot how to be. They forgot how to feel that natural resource that comes from an unlimited space, which is the universe we live in. I mean, we have to remember, we're in a very, very small planet in the middle of a huge galaxy, and that we're just a speck out there. So, what I'm saying is, it takes everybody stopping this rushing around business, and celebrating golden idols, like it says in the Bible, and begin to stop long enough to actually hear your own vibrational messages that you can hear. Everybody can hear it. It's just, I mean, I don't know how many people I've had that were like atheist sort of people that just came to me for a healing session because they had cancer, for instance. Well, by the time they left and they're feeling a lot better, and then I get a call later, hey, it's not there anymore, and all the rest of it, they start getting a grip that maybe there's more than just the selfish self that says that the human's important. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I've been thinking about a lot of this myself as well. When it comes to how harsh I am to myself, and how kind and gracious I've been to the world in comparison, and how
Yeah.
that doesn't make any sense. It should be towards myself as well. And so that's where I'm at this moment. I think that's one of the key elements to being able to connect with others, and to be able to connect in a way that lets go of all those prejudice and all those attacks that we're used to, and all this busyness, as you said, where we're busy with things that keep us apart rather than busy with what connects us.
Yeah, it's I've spent my life as one of God's lesser messengers. Uh, and although I don't feel like, I've made a dent really in anything global whatsoever, what I can say is that because I probably worked on maybe 25 to 35,000 people in that period of 46 years, uh, is that even though there's just one me or whatever it is, the people that come to see me actually take away whatever the universe offered to them, and then they talk about it. So the point is, it really doesn't make any difference what I did or didn't do. What does matter is what people take away, right? So when they take away this holy space for themselves, then they go out and they talk to their neighbor and they talk to their friend and so on and so forth. And what ends up happening is now you have a conglomeration of, lots and lots of people. The thing about me is I was a very, very antisocial character. I was a very careful cat. I still am. And I just didn't want to go public. And what I wasn't understanding over all these years is that's not going to make any kind of global dent whatsoever. So I decided to step out on a very narrow branch and be able to speak to people about these subjects. And, so far, so good. You know what I mean? Um, like it's been going on with me now for about 6 or 7 months, and I'm finding that people actually are interested. They don't seem to have a problem with it. Yeah, I mean, you get critics and trolls and whatever, uh, but for the most part, that's not the case. I would say 70 to 90% of everybody I'm talking to, regardless of what systems they operate in, religious or otherwise, they're like, yeah, I think you probably did have a death experience. And yeah, obviously after 46 years, you're doing something that's working. So what I'm saying today is we cannot do this alone. We cannot do it by ourselves. We have to get out of this selfish idea that it's just about us, or we're the best healer in the world, or we're the best speaker in the world, or whatever. But we don't want to share it. If you're not wanting to share it, then how in the world are you going to make any kind of difference that matters to anybody? You're not. So that's what computers are for. That's what worldwide, commerce is for. That's what worldwide business is for. We have this amazing website, for instance, that's discoverholiness.com, right? And people are hitting that daily from all over the world, and we're even shocked from where, like Sri Lanka or whatever. And I'm so pleased to be in communication with all these different people from around the world, because everybody really does want unity. Wanna everybody wants unity. Everybody wants wholeness. Everybody wants to feel happy and stable, and everybody wants to feel at home. And see, the problem is that the earth is not our home. It's a temporary space. And if you get over the idea that this is your home and into the idea that the universal space is your real home, now you're going to start getting somewhere and you're going to start feeling whole and happy and stable. All right. There's that. So what do you think about that?
I like the idea that everyone wants to be at home and whole and happy. And in A Course in Miracles, it also speaks about that being something that everyone has this wanting to be perfectly happy, which is natural to the human nature, I guess, or to
Yes.
who we are.
Yeah.
And the idea that we can't be happy or not, and the thing is, A Course in Miracles also spreads the idea everyone can be happy at the same time. It's not something that has to be one person is happy and the other person has to be unhappy for that person to be happy, right? And so it's a very different idea than the ideas that separate us, where you have the idea that one person can be happy alone. It's not possible. And so this is very beautiful, and I think it's really relevant. And for me, it's also challenging to go out there and be out there, right? And speak about things. And
Yes.
and I
Right.
and when I got the message, it's your job, right? I had to think about, okay, how I'm gonna go about it. I'm not even, oh my, I'm not even worthy for this or whatever. I'm not ready. I don't know. I had all these ideas about all the things I had to do in order to be ready, and I still have these resistances. And so I understand your that it's so important for you to make this step and to figure and start feeling comfortable with it. And yes, I also had the idea of not having made a dent in anything. And like,
Yeah.
oh,
Of
like
course.
nothing has happened and so on and so forth. And
Yeah.
still the divine, or whatever we want to say to it, right, is saying you need to get out there. You just start telling people about what you're going through and what your experiences are, and so on. And one of the main messages was come from where you're at. And I think that's so beautiful because that is powerful. We don't have to be somewhere else. And even the podcast name, I put that in there. At home is now.
Sure. And I like the name because everybody tries to make this thing just complicated, right? They think you have to go through years of seminary to be closer to God, or they think you got to go, up on a mountain and be some kind of, uh, you know, um, person who doesn't involve themselves with anybody, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And what I'm doing, in my mission is to change that idea to where if you're living in an apartment in Boston, or you're living in Los Angeles, or you're living in Colorado in the forest, it doesn't make any difference. What you do in that case is you find a space, even if it's just in your own house, in which you can be quiet and still, even for a few seconds, actually makes a big difference to you. Because then you're listening. Anytime you're listening, you're actually raising your higher vibration like that. So it happens immediately. Holiness, I want everybody to hear this. Holiness is always waiting to enter your space. You only need to invite it. You only need to say to yourself things like, in my case, I say, I am. When I say that wording, it comes. It's not ritualistic. It doesn't require a giving up of anything. It does require giving some time to where you're not paying attention to your TV, or you're not listening to somebody blabber about politics, or you're not out in some kind of situation in which everybody's distracting you on every level about everything, right? It's really, the universe is not a complicated thing. It's very, very simple. It's not very hard to listen. There are lots of different kinds of people. So some people, which I think this is important to mention, some people are seers, right? So I'm what's called a seer. I can actually see all of this stuff. There are people though that can hear, right? So they actually hear music, they hear holiness. And then there's the third kind, and that's the people that actually feel it, right? So they'll feel some kind of holy feeling by being in a certain space, right? So you have these three different kinds of folks, basically. And it's kind of fun as you're learning to become students of light, because that's what you are, to figure out, which one of those are you, and where is your strength, right? Because everybody's going to have one of those three. I have run into a few people that have all three. I've run into people that have two of the three, and so on and so forth. And that doesn't really make any difference, other than they actually discovered what they were, who they were, and how they could serve. See, that's the point, right? Is how can we actually serve the greater good, the greater God, the greater universe, whatever your semantics are, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter what country you're in. It doesn't matter, Wanako here is in Austria, right? So I'm in America. I live in Reno, Nevada, is where I live, next to Lake Tahoe. It doesn't really matter what the language is or what part of the world you're in. What does matter is that you step up a little bit, right? It did not, like Wanako said, it takes a lot of bravery, to break past your own fears, like unworthiness, like you mentioned, and various other things. And, a lot of people get lost in, well, what can I do? Well, you can actually do a lot. I think if you think about President Kennedy, for instance, right, that's a good example of, what one person could do, right? And he climbed that ladder because he decided he could do it. And then there's various people through history. You have Jesus, you have Buddha, and some others. They really weren't extraordinary in any way other than they made the choice of turning inward to that holy self. And then they walked out into the world and they decided they were going to serve, in the case of those two individuals, a large way, right? But it doesn't make any difference whether you're choosing my way or Wanako's way or Jesus' way or Buddha's way or whoever's way. Choose one. It's in the choice of that we begin to raise the vibrational level really, really fast. And when you do that, what ends up happening is you find yourself being in this perfect space and in an unlimited area in which now you can serve. It doesn't matter how. I don't care if you go down and you're going to work with the homeless folks or whatever. Or you're going to go in the other way and you're going to be in a church, and you're going to be a minister or whatever. See, here's the thing about it. Before, the old way that humans were thinking is that you had to be a thing, right? And unless you were that thing, whether it was a minister or a Buddhist monk or whatever, you weren't serving. And that is absolutely not true. I don't care if you're a construction worker, digging ditches, or whether you're, a CEO of a giant company. There is always some way that every single human on this planet can absolutely serve. And that's why I'm doing this video and many, many others I mean, even I actually have events lined up for the next 12 months. We're going to go all over the place and do events and talk about this subject. That's why I'm on here, right? And that's my story. Again.
Yes. I can also relate to this feeling uncomfortable with people, right? Or with many
Yeah.
people. And this realization that my communication can be very poor, or the communication of others can be very poor. And then these
Sure.
two poor communications clash. And then it's
Sure.
not, and it doesn't feel like joining. So this fear that of actually joining and then not making the connection is also an issue when you want to put yourself out there, when you decide you're going to put yourself out there. And so this choice that there is a way, right, to join and
Yeah.
to discover unity, or whatever we want to call it, discover that our holiness, our wholeness. And and it is important to join with others, and that even if we've not been able to do that, our whole lives have been messing up all the time, doesn't mean we should stop doing it, right? Joining.
Yeah, well, like here's some of the excuses that I hear about what you're saying, such as, this is my favorite one, right? So I'm too old. I mean, don't you love that one? Uh, I'm too old to join. Well, it doesn't have anything to do with age, right? It only has to do with stepping up. It doesn't have anything to do with economic status. A lot of people think it has to do with money. Well, I don't have the money to do that, right? And then the third one is I don't have the time. So that's like three things that I like hear continually. And I'm like, well, okay, so you must think that I'm the richest person, the most experienced person, and that I'm not too old. And, why am I doing it? Right. So I kind of give it back to them. And then they don't have any more blubbering to do at that point. And then, then we start having conversations. I mean, this morning, even at breakfast, I was talking to just a person, a waitress that was working with us, at breakfast with my children and I. And pretty soon we're in this giant conversation about Lemurians and Atlanteans and whatever, and Mount Shasta and so on and so forth. So I've learned by just opening my mouth and stop having decisions about what's going to happen, and just being in the moment, that's where the magic is. The magic is whether we're doing a podcast or whether we're talking to a waitress or anybody else about anything, that somewhere in there, I want everybody to hear this next part. If you're a dedicated person and you want to make a difference, keep in mind that if you've got holiness in your heart, that you could be talking about the weather or apples and oranges, it doesn't really make any difference. That vibrational tone will actually come through you, and the person you're talking to will receive it, right? And since that's true, now all of a sudden, everybody now has the freedom, right, to talk about whatever, knowing that underneath that holy feeling and that vibration and that uplifting light is present, and it is operating as you're talking to whatever stranger you choose to. I realize, breaking the ice and all of that sort of stuff is very difficult for anybody, right? Because we're in a habit of not trusting and all the rest of that. Well, the only way that we're going to get anywhere with this whole thing is not necessarily trusting people, because they have to, trust has to be earned, right? Uh, However, if you don't open your mouth and you don't start the conversation about whatever in order to deliver holiness, nothing happens at all. So, what I'm saying is, get off your butt and off your couch, stop eating potato chips and all the rest of whatever it is you're doing, watching the football game or whatever, and actually get out amongst live people and begin to make the changes of the type of world that you want to live in, right? Because that's what we're doing, and that's the real mission of anybody and everybody that wants all humanity to come together, right? So that's actually what we're after.
Yeah, I like the point of that it can be in any situation with anybody and about anything at that point. What's it, what you're coming to is feeling the holiness within you. Well, you might be feeling very blocked at a certain point in your life and still know that it's there, right? And even sharing how you're moving through that, and discovering more of how you can be in the world with and so on, can be so joining as well. It's so people, often feel alone with what they're going through, and even just opening up about what you're going through is also a way of joining. And so it's a very important thing to remember that we can join at whatever level we're at the point that we're at. And
Yeah, it's that point of origin, where you have to decide, number one, where you are, and number two, after you get that part, then be able to pull out from whatever level that is your truth. Because when you stand in your truth, in your holy temple, in your holy place, and you begin to deliver that message of what your truth is. Now, that doesn't mean that the person you're talking to is going to agree with it. What it does mean is that you're able to do it. And when you do that, then what ends up happening is now you have an open dialogue, right? So it's the open dialogue that begins to change the planet and begins to change humanity. So also I know we're live, but I am running out of time. I have to check out of this hotel. So I thought I better tell you.
Yeah. So, do we have, how much time do we have left? And then
About 5 minutes.
Okay, then we'll start wrapping up. So, is there anything that I haven't asked you or elicited from you that you'd like to share here?
I don't think so. I feel like you and I went all the way around the whole, tree of what we want to deliver in this conversation. And I think that I would like to have further conversations with you also, maybe about a few other subjects at some point. But I do feel like what I want to say to everybody is, please join in. Please step up. Let go of your fear and begin to actually communicate with each other on a holy level.
Yeah, I think that's really, really important, and it also is beneficial to yourself because because of being true to your own nature and to who you are at this point, and speaking from there is going to open you up to be able to go deeper and to discover more.
Yeah,
Because
and there's
if
no.
you don't, you
Go ahead.
won't discover more by not sharing.
Yeah,
So I've also realized, also when it comes to writing or to doing or speaking or whatever, you need to speak the next word, the next sentence, form the next sentence, and so on, so that the ones afterwards come and follow.
that's right.
And they don't follow by not saying anything or by
No, they
not.
don't. It's the whole one foot in front of the other, right? And I think we can do it. I really feel great about my mission, and I know you do too. And I'm just so thrilled to have you in my life. I really am.
No, this is wonderful, and I think this is a really important point, right, to make, that you made and we made here, is
It
that
is.
we want to join and we want to feel at home with one another and feel at home in the world. And to
That's
do
right.
that, we need to make it our home as well, in the sense that we actually start feeling comfortable about being who we are, having the experiences we have, no matter whether they're real to someone else or not. We're still communicating something that they can resonate with. And
That.
and so whether someone says, oh yeah, Adam, you didn't have that experience, isn't real, it was a dream, right? Well, it doesn't
Sure.
matter actually whether it's a dream or not,
No.
because the message is what's important. That's what A Course in Miracles also says. It's not about the form, it's about the message.
Well,
So
first of
but
all, I mean, listen, if somebody were to come to me, because I want to say this, because I get a lot of flack, I'm sure you know. Um, if somebody were to come to say to me, well, that's not real and that's a dream, and you know what my answer is? My answer is, well, maybe you're right. I'm okay with that.
yeah, that's the perfect answer, because we don't, it doesn't matter for the message, right?
No, it doesn't.
It doesn't
What does
really
matter is
matter.
what does matter is what it does.
Exactly. So
Yeah.
if it helps someone to see it as a dream, as a vision, for them to accept the message,
Yeah.
what does it matter to you, right?
Yeah. And so I think I want to mention too, we do have a website. It's www.discoverwholeness.com. I am not afraid to talk to people at all. We're in America, and that area code is 775-444-4249. I'm not afraid to talk to anybody. So, I thought I would add that.
Yeah, well, just send me the two and I'll put it in the show notes.
Groovy.
Okay. Yeah, so I guess you need to check out in a few
And I
minutes.
do. Yeah.
So I wish you all the best. Thank you so much for this conversation, for joining. And as in A Course in Miracles, it says we're walking each other home. Well, let's continue doing that. And blessings to everyone who is watching, and please reach out to me if you want to be on the podcast. Please review it. Please let people know about it and get the word out, because there's a whole lot of conversations on here. This will be episode 254, so there's a
Wow.
lot there.
Okay.
So please start getting excited about it, and maybe you will be the next person to be on here.
That's
So
groovy.
please reach out to me, and if you know someone who would be a great fit,
I do.
you can just get us in touch, and we'll arrange things.
Cool.
I'll
I'm gonna put
arrange
my
it.
wife on there.
Wonderful.
Yeah, she's got a story. She's a Lithuanian, and it's intense.
Well, you probably still have the link
Mm-hmm.
to set up a time, or I'll send it to you again.
Okay.
And then she can just choose one. Right now it's in February.
Okay.
Okay.
All right,
Then
sir.
all the best, and till next time, blessings to you all.
Yep. Blessings, my friend.